In the years past, what we've often done is bring in a litigating attorney and sit down with me and go through the process of litigation. I've had the chance to work as a legal representative or legal vice president for 3 different companies, and we've gone through several lawsuits, multiple lawsuits, either defending the company or suing somebody for trademark infringement. And then I've been through a few personal lawsuits, and I'll tell you a little bit about those just a little bit later. But I've learned a little bit about the process of litigation. Let's kind of walk you through this for just a couple minutes. Here's the process that what would happen if a lawsuit commences. Let's suppose you run into somebody on the freeway, and the other person sustains some injuries. Here's the process. The plaintiff's attorney is first of all going to determine whatever coverage you have. How does he know that? Because you gave him the insurance card, and he can call the insurance company, and for free they give that to the insurance agent. What does that tell him? It tells him your address, tells him the cars that you drive, it tells them the amount of coverage that you have, and that tells them a lot. Now what they can do is they can do a quick little internet search. Do you know that most any attorney in the nation can get online, and for $29 or $39 or $49, now that they have this information about you, and do an asset search and almost determine what's in your bank accounts, what's in your brokerage accounts, what real estate you've ever owned, how much equity you have in your real estate. It's not hard to do a little research and a little background check on you, and within about 30 minutes they almost know what color underwear you're wearing. And then what they do is, after they've determined your coverage, they do the asset search. They could go on further and do a bank search. They could do county record search, all before you even know that somebody's searching for you. In today's internet world, it is not hard with just a little cash under the table or cash over the table to do an asset search. Now, is that a little scary thought? Do you know that there are people that go around county recorders and look for people with equity in their home? Look for big properties. You ever get statements in the mail saying, here's the amount of equity you have in your home and would love to help you refinance? How do they know that? Because they bought a list supplied to them by your mortgage company because they sold them the information. Wow. How hard is it for somebody today to find out how much equity you have in real estate? It is very easy. Okay. Do an abstract search. Okay, and now the plaintiff's attorney has to make a decision. They are either going to take the case or they're going to walk away. And let me tell you what the plaintiff's attorney is going to go through his mind as to whether he's going to take your case or not. Let me show you the criteria. Are you ready? Here's his decision tree. Number one, he wants to know the extent of the assets. He wants to know the barriers to collecting those assets. And then he wants to know the merits of the case. Did you get the order and the sequence of those questions? Is it worth my time to go after this guy? What barriers are there? And then I want to know the merits of the case. Is this do I need a couple minutes to let that one rattle around a little bit? That's scary. Now, most attorneys, if they have a law license, they're not going to create a frivolous lawsuit if there are no merits at all. But they're sure as heck not going to take the case if there's no assets to go after. Our goal, we talk a lot about lawsuit protection. I can't protect you from lawsuits. People can sue you all the time. What we're trying to do in lawsuit protection is keep them from getting anything. They can sue you all day long, but when you sit down with them, there's nothing here. This is limited partnerships. This is in LLCs. This is in my trust. This is irrevocable trust. I've got a desk and a chair and a computer and a lampshade and a nice little couch. Do you want my leather used couch? I mean, we want it so that you look absolute destitute and poor on paper. We want as many barriers to collecting the biggest charging order states, the best, within reason that we can create. Some of you have come to me and says, okay, I've got this, $5,000 brokerage account, and so what I'm going to do is I'd like a C corporation so I can take all the tax deductions that I can, and I'd like a limited partnership, and do I need to move this to Nevada? And and we're trying to protect a $5,000 brokerage account. Can I suggest that sometimes, let me put it in different terms. Let's suppose you wanted good home security. And so to get good home security, you build gun turrets on the top of your house and an alligator moat and razor wire and howitzers and landmines and an F-6, you've got the hovering aircraft. And sometimes, may I suggest that just having window locks, door locks, and a little alarm system would be adequate. Does this sort of make sense? Can Nevada corporations be complete overkill for what you're doing? Yeah. Offshore trusts and, irrevocable trusts, and sometimes these are cool concepts, but don't overkill. Keep it wise, keep it prudent. I had a guy that called me in customer service a few years ago from not too far from here. He was a dentist down in southern Utah, and he's probably got $1.5 million estate. And he calls me up in customer service and he says, okay, Don, what are the steps to setting up a limited partnership? And I go through the steps with him. And he called me back a couple days later and he says, but how do I get my interest of the limited partnership down to the trust? So I walked him through the process of getting that down, because all your rights and interests in limited partnerships and LLCs eventually have to find their way down in the trust, right? Okay. So we walked him through that, and he called me back 3 months later, and he said, Don, I've got my 57 limited partnerships set up, and I was wondering, I went, whoa, stop, red flag, buddy. His doghouse is in a separate limited partnership. I mean, it's just, I don't know, but it's just ludicrous what he's done. There's only so much that I can do in customer service, and I can answer your questions. I can't sit down with you like an attorney, go over your estate, and tell you are way out in left field, buddy, because I can only answer. That's why working with a good attorney is sometimes very advantageous. Cool? Does that make sense? Okay. Let's go back to what we're doing, because, again, squirrel, I went off on a little sidetrack. But it's an important sidetrack that you need to know. I don't want you to overkill your estate. After a plaintiff's attorney decides whether he's going to take the case or not, now we begin, he may or may not send you a notice of intent to sue. Now they file the actual lawsuit, the complaint. And now begins the fun part, the discovery process that can go on for months and years, and this is depositions and interrogatories and requests for admissions and requests for production of evidence and all of this stuff that can take forever. This is not a fun process, and those of you that have been through this know that this is not a fun process. What we'd like to do is be able to nip this in the bud right off the bat and say there are no assets here to protect. There are no assets here that are exposed. And nip this in the butt before we can get into this discovery process. They're going to file a complaint. You're going to get served. And then we want that to end right there. Because we don't want you to have to go through this. That's sort of the goal. Let me tell you where most of our students shoot themselves in the foot by doing it themselves. And I went through this list a little bit last night, but if your legal structure falls apart, it's always going to be because of 4 things, or a combination of the 4. Either you did not keep up your formalities, you created complete insolvency for what you did, there was a fraudulent conveyance going in, or you have totally mismanaged, commingled everything, and it's all really considered an alter ego of you. I can't tell the difference between your bank account and the C Corporation's bank account, and you've so mixed it up that it's really just you. There is no legal separation. But let's not talk about it in terms of shooting yourself in the foot. Let's talk about it in terms of how to do it right. Is that fair? So we do the corporate formalities when they're required. We file the bank, we have a separate bank account. We keep a separate set of books for each legal entity. We file tax returns when they're due. We preserve personal solvency. We keep some assets in your personal name. Always keeping a car, at least one car in your name. Always keeping a household checking account in your name. Always keeping some personal property in your name to meet your current needs and obligations. Big stuff, fine, tuck that away, but always leave enough in your name so that you're not completely insolvent. We avoid fraudulent conveyance by doing our advanced planning in advance of when we need it. And when we run an entity, we do it right. We don't commingle funds. We'll talk about relationships between entities, and a lot of this will become clearer, but kind of keep that in mind. Now, I'm not going to go through, we went about as much as we wanted to last night, so I'm going to zip right through this because I spent a little bit of time on this, about how we actually do it. There's our summary again. I'd like you to, what's the point of all this? Now that we've talked about corporations, limited partnerships, LLCs, trusts, some of you are a little bit overwhelmed. We don't want you to be overwhelmed. We want to teach you and we want to be there and answer your questions. Sometimes it's good to have somebody in your corner to look over your shoulder, make sure you're doing it right. Keep your formalities up. Preserve your solvency. Play the game. If you're going to play the game, play it right. Now, let me tell you the biggest problem that I think my experience has had where you do shoot yourself in the foot doing your own legal work. If you walk out of this class and do nothing, that to me is the biggest problem that you have. Let me show you this. Do you see the little 69, 87, 94? If you've been to this class, you pretty much know what I'm going to say here. This comes from Zig Ziglar organization. When I worked with him for a little while, he taught me this rule, 69, 87, 94. If you walk out of this class and within 24 hours of being excited, yeah, I'm going to do this, if you do nothing in the first 24 hours, there's a 69% chance you never will. Is that scary? If you go 2 days or 48 hours without doing anything, there's an 87% chance you never will. And if you go 3 days, it's pretty much not going to happen. Here's my point. When you leave this class, I want a commitment from you that you will take the tools that you've done. Don't overkill your estate. Don't go out and create 57 entities because they're cool. Be wise. Be prudent. For most of you, if you just got started and did something, protect the biggest asset or the biggest threat to your estate, just do something within 24 hours, that will be a very good thing. And if you don't within 3 days, you know as well as I do that that's kind of human nature, don't you? Do those statistics kind of ring true in your life? They do for me. I go to the bookstore, I get excited, I buy a brand new book, I'm so excited to read it, but I'm really tired tonight, so I set it down. And the next day, something else happens, and after 3 days, it gets stuck on my bookshelf, and I never read it. And you know what I mean, right? Okay. The biggest mistake you can make is to do nothing. I don't want you to do nothing. I want you to get involved. I want you to do it. I want you to get out your kit. I want you to get out your notes. I want you to start with the trust. I want you to start with the corporation. I want you to start wherever you think you need to start, but start. That's important. Now, I told you I would spend just a little bit and tell you a little bit about me. Some of you have heard me tell how I got into this. How many of you have heard me? A couple of you. In 1993, I had been for 12 years, I'd run recreation parks. You know, miniature golf, batting cages, water slides. 16, 17-year-old kids as my primary employees. It was their first job. They were lifeguards. They were miniature golf rep. Yeah, I mean, you know, they were cashiers. They ran snack bars, arcades. You know, that's what we did. And I was really good at what I did, and I'd run 3 parks between Utah and Southern California, and we could take a park, and within about 12 months, we could take it from ground floor and make it profitable. Board it up, losing money, and we could take it and we could turn it around pretty quick. I knew how to hire the right people. I knew how to fix it up. I knew what was worth fixing and what was not worth fixing, and I knew what people were looking for in the recreation business, and I was pretty good at doing what I did. And then June 16th came along. And what happened on June 16th? It was a beautiful day in Southern California. We were in the San Bernardino Valley, absolutely gorgeous. It had been a summer day, you know, the recreation parks live for. We had probably 400 people up in a company party on the water slide most of the day. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and the people had gone home, but they were hosing down, and the lifeguards were cleaning up, getting ready to leave. Is that when the earthquake happened? No, it wasn't the earthquake. We had the park was now filled with people. The golf courses were spectacular. We'd worked all spring and summer to get this up and going. The little Shalda lights are on, and the castle, and we're right by the freeway, and we had like 79 great big palm trees it was a spectacular little golf course. And we'd mowed and trimmed and painted, and we'd replaced carpet, and it was a great night, and every hole was filled with 3 or 4 people, and they were going around their little golf course, and the race cars were going, the batting cages were going, both arcades were filled, the laser tag, they were shooting up, and they were having fun, and the little pizza parlor was going, and I was transporting about $5,000 in my left pocket from one arcade to another arcade. And previous to this, not to my knowledge, we had kicked out 3 boys out of the arcade because they put their fist through a video game because it took their quarter. And we were fully staffed that night. We had 3 security guards, 2 of them armed security guards, off-duty police officers. And they got a little rough with the 3 guys, and they asked them to leave the park. Our 3rd security guard, by the way, was a clown. The best security guard I ever had. Because at that time we had some problems with gangs coming out of LA, and they would wear gang colors and come into the park on Friday and Saturday nights and stir things up. And so whenever gang killers showed up, the little clown she would dance over there, and she'd make them a balloon, and she'd sing them a happy birthday song, and she would never leave them until she had just absolutely gagged them out and made them leave the park. Never said anything, just smiled and sang and happy. It was they hated her, and she was so good. You can't get mad at a clown, and so she was on duty that night. The three boys left the park, went up to 7-Eleven, were there about 10 minutes, and they drove past, getting on the freeway, rolled down the right front window, fired a gun 3 times into our parking lot. Darla was 18 years old. It was her birthday. She was driving a car. She had her 2 friends in the back seat. She opened the door, stood up. A bullet came through the van right next to her, great big van. There's no way they could have seen her. Went through both sides of the van and hit her in the left temple. And she went down. And I got sued because I was the manager on duty at the time. I've got 4 little kids at home. This has been the worst experience of my life anyway. And I got sued because I didn't do anything wrong, but I got sued because I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, she was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but I was the manager on duty, and so the lawsuit. I had no legal background. I had no way of knowing that this was a shotgun lawsuit, and they went after everybody who had anything to do with it, and then we went through 3 years of depositions and interrogatories, and we went through 3 years of absolute hell. At that point, I had moved back to Utah, and they were still after me. And it went on and on and on and on. Why do I tell you such a horrible story? And now what I do is I travel around the country telling people, here's how you can protect yourself from lawsuits. And I've written 3 books on the subject and surrounded myself with some of the most brilliant people that you will ever meet on the subject of lawsuit protection. Why do I tell you such a horrible story? To tell you that if a stupid little recreation park manager from Southern California can learn these principles, you can too. And you have to. If you don't do it, who is going to do it for you? If you don't do it, are you going to go back to the attorney that didn't fund your revocable trust in the first place? Are you going to go back to the accountant that didn't teach you some fun little tax principles that Patrick James taught you in 40 minutes? Where are you going to go if you don't learn to do some of this stuff yourself? You do it because you have to.